all rights are relative. We don't think they're an absolute right to unionize or an absolute right to create associations, because oftentimes when you create rights, it infringes upon the rights of other individuals. The right for teachers to unionize, we think, is one of those rights that have gone so far that it's starting to hurt the rights of all individuals to such a degree that we think we ought to ban it. Where can we see this notion actually taking place? Julius and I are going to primarily talk about California, where this motion and teacher unions are primarily exhibited and allowed, and it manifests themselves in their control in the political process in a variety of manners. What is Julius and I's standard? Our standard is that when the right for teachers to unionize destroys the right for individuals to get a good education, for the state to make educational policy decisions unaffected that might help to benefit the rest of society, and also creates a huge burden to the state, which ends up hurting the poorest of the country, we think it's by far time enough for us to decide that the right for teachers of the union does not stand. Our model is very simple. We just think that we should ban all teachers' unions, and any associations within them should not be able to exist within that status quo. Okay, moving on. I'm going to talk about three things today. First, I'm going to go over how this hurts the general quality and level of education, and how this primarily affects students. Second, I'm going to go over how this hurts the state goals in setting and accomplishing educational and also just state policy goals in general. And third, I'm going to go over how this actually hurts teachers altogether within their own ability. So therefore, it hurts all primary actors that we think are involved. First, how does this hurt the quality of education? We think it hurts it in three subpoints. Subpoint A is that it hurts the level of the quality of teachers that exist. Teacher unions, and just unions in general, establish hierarchies of seniority that are based upon these primary ideas of the Jew who come first into the union get the most benefits and get the rights, and when we have to make certain cuts amongst the unions, you're the ones who are least touched and who weather that storm really well. What happens? This leads to something that educational policy makers call first hired, first fired, where individual teachers who are the youngest ones to join, the youngest ones who are attracted to the teacher job, who oftentimes are the most educated, the ones who actually are most passionate about it, and are very young and actually have a lot of energy to expend, are the ones that are first to leave when teacher unions are forced to make cuts. This generally hits the quality of education, because instead of assessing which teachers are the best ones, which ones have produced the best results, which teachers are the ones who care most for the teachers, they only can go to one inefficient metric, which oftentimes cuts the very best teachers who help out the students most. This generally just hurts all students altogether by forcing individuals to just, based upon the arbitrary luck of how old you are and when you join the teacher, to be the ones who weather the storm, and as a result, the general level of quality of teaching goes down. No. Subpoint B, this creates massive benefits for teacher unions, right? Teacher unions are very good at establishing huge benefits for teachers amongst them. And why is this problematic? Because it creates a huge burden on taxpayers, which ends up making taxpayers and also the state government have to make certain decisions that privilege teachers over other educational goals. What happens, right? When we saw in 2008, with the powerful teacher unions, California was not able to pass certain pieces of legislation that would direct funding in their educational pool to help out other educational policies, right? These are things like we have less funding for after-school programs. This means like less funding for school infrastructure, lights, computers, classroom, buildings, certain things like that. For books, for helping out students in a variety of other ways. Therefore, because of the massive benefits that are locked into teachers and protected by teacher unions, the state policy has to redirect funding that very much would help and is more needed help for these particular teachers than in other places, which hurts the general level of education. Subpoint C is that strikes lead to huge long periods of kids falling behind in educational services. Chicago recently had a teacher strike where more than 3.5 weeks of school went by. This may seem minuscule, but this ended up hurting, according to an educational study, the students who are already falling behind by a massive amount, because those are the individuals who need that time the most to catch up, who need that time not to fall behind. This means that in the status quo, when teachers are able to threaten using strikes against the particular things, they hold children's educational lives and goals on the line, and therefore force the state to give them benefits that they may or may not actually deserve. This massively hurts students and their ability to actually gain access, especially because the elementary school kids need certain subjects to build on other subjects. Without this goal, we think students are massively losing out to teachers trying to get better benefits in the long term. Back half.
Yeah, you spoke about the tax burdens created by teachers' unions requiring extra funding for teachers, but teachers are historically have been a fairly underpaid class of people in the U.S., so aren't there things that are threatening the taxpayers more than teachers?
Okay, there definitely are, but the problem is that teachers still lock in a huge amount of benefits to themselves in the first place. That is still a priority harm. But the other thing we'd say to that is, Julius and I are perfectly okay with raising teachers' salaries to an acceptable degree, but we shouldn't do it on teachers' basis themselves. Teachers are always going to continue to say we deserve higher and higher and higher pay, but we should, as a state government, be able to decide when that pay is either too high or benefits are too high, which we think right now in the status quo it is. Point number two. How does this hurt the state's goal in setting and accomplishing policy goals in general? We told you how this makes the political decisions difficult because of the power of teacher unions to lobby to politicians. It's a huge voting bloc. They're massively powerful and they can use striking as a method to get what they want. They're extremely, extremely powerful political unit. And this prevents certain states, like California in 2008, to make tough decisions, when therefore they actually kept a lot of the teacher benefits, because when they tried to cut it, a huge protest went into and they didn't enter cut it. Where did they cut the money actually from? They cut it from other programs or people who couldn't protest as hard, who didn't have the ability to engage in the political process as much as teacher unions have the ability to engage. Who is hurt, right? These are things like welfare, poor individuals who can't access the government as well as teachers individuals. These are certain programs such as the state's ability to affect and cut their budget in general, which means that California still has to go through deficit spending, which hurts everybody. Therefore, the need to pass policies may actually disadvantage teachers to help other people. This is the end of policy goal that occurs when teacher unions are able to lobby this particular change. Therefore, things like when California tried to pass child care acts, which would extend teacher hours to after-school programs, they protested this. Oftentimes, the people who are hurt the most are the children who the state is trying to make an educational policy goal that may hurt teachers a little more, but help others, and it's rejected again time and time again, which ends up hurting state's ability to actualize any policy goal. Lastly, how does this hurt teachers themselves? Julius will touch much more about this, but to give to you, the seniority and hierarchy that exists shuts out a lot of teachers from being able to enact realistic changes because of the way that the hierarchy exists where they have no actual democratic process and ability to say things. This forces teachers to have to join to get into the teacher unions or discriminated, have to pay union dues, and have to vote in certain ways, or else face massive discrimination or being kicked out in the way that teacher unions are affected. For this, in the way that cartels in general, like unions work, we are very, very proud to propose.
Thank the gentleman for his speech, and now, from the loyal opposition, I invite their leader to establish their case here.